Hey guys, well, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and today I'm going to make a video that I wished I had about 2.5, 3 years ago whenever we started our trying to conceive journey. So for those of you who are new, I am currently pregnant. We did not conceive naturally, but I am going back to the beginning and just talking about things that I wished I had known before we ever tried to start conceiving. If you are thinking about starting to try and conceive, or you're, in that first couple of month thing, it may not happen right away. It may not happen in 3 to 6 months, and that's okay. Just know that it is okay if it takes a little bit longer. And I especially say that if you've been on birth control. So all my ladies, if you've been on a hormonal birth control for years like I was, it wreaks havoc on your hormones and it takes your body a while to rebalance itself back out. So I say the first 3 months is just your body kind of resetting, readjusting, and figuring out, okay, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Don't even get me started on hormonal birth control. It's a whole nother video that I could go over for you. The next point I want to make is just know that there are lots of different ways that you can start this journey, right? You don't have to start the journey in the charting and tracking and doing all of the temperatures and all of that stuff. That's totally fine, and that is one option, but you can always just, pull the birth control, stop using the protection, and let nature take its course and see what happens. If you're in your early 20s or mid 20s, go for it. And you're ready to start having a baby, absolutely go for it. I would 100% probably would have started right there. We were starting on the later end, and so we personally chose to go the charting and the temping and all of that stuff, just because we were trying to make sure we were using the time that we needed. But I think the most important thing with that is just make sure that you decide together with your spouse, because if one of you wants to just let nature take its course and do it the organic way, that's great. But if the other person is type A like me and you want to have all of the charts and the know what's going on and all of that, you're gonna butt heads a lot and you're gonna argue, and that's the worst thing that you could be doing and have going on inside you, just that stress added in there. So especially when you're trying to have a baby. So make sure that you're both together on the same page and talk about it. Understand why the other person wants to do it one way versus the other. We took into consideration the timing and the delays that we had, which if you have not seen our video and our journey and just our story, I'll link that up here. We had to wait for a whole year before we could even start trying. So for that year, I was charting just to I'd already pulled my birth control. So I was just making sure that my body was ovulating so that when we did get the green light, we could go ahead and start. I was very in tune of when I should be ovulating during the month. And all of that kind of leads me into the next point, is just making sure that you're paying attention to your body. So as you start, especially if you're gonna go the charting and tracking way, you're gonna become very in tune with how your body reacts. And if you become stressed or your anxiety level or anything like that starts creeping in and you're doing the charting way, back off of the charting way, right? Like I said, the extra stress is not something that you need when you're going through and you're trying to conceive. One of the other important things is check in with your spouse periodically. And this is not just for the ladies to check in with the guys, but for the guys to check in on your wives and make sure that they're okay. Because as you get started and you start tracking, and again, I speak a lot to the tracking side because that is the side that we went down and we went that way. But if you're tracking for 3 to 6 months and it's not happening, that's a very calculated and a very planned and timed, and hey, it's time to do the deed. And that takes the fun out of it. It takes the spontaneity out of it. And so checking in with each other, just to be like, hey, are you, how are we still feeling about this? It's not becoming a job, because it will become a job very quickly if you let it. Like I said, so when you start tracking, you become very aware of your body. And one of the things that you become aware of is your cervical fluid. If you are starting to try to conceive and you haven't done a lot of research, your cervical fluid is so important for conceiving, because that is basically the superhighway to get the sperm to where they need to be. So if you don't have that good quality fertile cervical fluid, then that process of trying to conceive is already probably 10 times harder because you're already starting out at a disadvantage. So that is the one thing that I would say focus on. There are ways to naturally just enhance your cervical fluid. So the number one thing is drinking water. If you are not drinking enough water, that will impact it 100%. So make sure you drink water. The other thing that I tried is evening primrose oil. I had a couple of friends who recommended this. One friend made a huge difference for her. When I tried it, I think I tried it for 2 or 3 months. I never noticed a difference. See if it works for you. If not, then don't worry about it. And then grapefruit juice, I think, is the other thing that I've heard. I did not personally try that, but I have heard that grapefruit juice helps. One of the other points, and I am 100% speaking to myself 3 years ago, try not to get consumed by this process. It can very quickly take you down the rabbit hole and you will be so consumed with it you won't even realize that that's all you think about. And I say that because it's so hard to do, because it's right there in the forefront of your mind, and so everything else just kind of falls away and that's all that you start thinking about. So I would say find ways to distract yourself. Make sure you have those date nights. Go out with your spouse and do something fun. Have dinner with your family or your friends, or go and do something with them. Do, you know, your own hobbies outside. Just make sure you're getting out of the house and distracting you in some way. Which this was really, really hard for me, and this is where I struggled. In our year of waiting that we had, part of that fell right in the middle of when COVID hit. And so I was brought home, I started working from home, and then I was without the distraction of getting up and going through a routine of getting ready, going to work, and having coworkers, you know, distract me throughout the day. And just that out of the house distraction wasn't there anymore. And so I was literally here by myself all day with dogs, but you know, they don't really talk back to me whenever I talk to them. So, and then, you know, you're not as chatty with coworkers when they're not like physically there with you. So I 100% dove into that little rabbit hole. And in that time, I started watching like the pregnancy vlogs and the trying to conceive stuff and birth vlogs. And I mean, again, all consuming. And then it was not a healthy thing that I did. And so again, I say all this and I say, please listen to me, because I wish I had heard somebody say this to me 3 years ago when I started. As the woman, you start making all of the changes first. You change what you eat, you change what you're drinking, or you're at least watching what you're eating and what you're drinking and trying to make those little more healthier choices. You start taking a prenatal, definitely something else. If you are starting to try and conceive, start taking a prenatal, because you want those vitamins and minerals and the folic acid and all that. You want that in your body ahead of time. So just a tip for me, and I did not do this. I did not practice this very well. But if you get that negative test and you know that, hey, this month is completely out, designate that time as non-baby time. Do not watch the vlogs. Do not watch the pregnancy stuff. Don't look at the baby registries. Again, just a no baby time in those first like maybe couple weeks, and starting into all of the tracking and all of that. So products that I used when we were trying to conceive, I used the Ovia fertility and cycle tracker, and I also used the Premom ovulation app. My suggestion, the other thing that I used were these like easy home ovulation kits, but these are just the like cheapy little strips. They come in a little pack. So I wrote down like how much all of this cost, and this is why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. So for me, I knew we were going to be trying to conceive. I knew that I was going to be testing a lot. So the box that I just showed you has 100 ovulation little kits in there. So I looked on Amazon today and it is $23.99 for that exact same box. And there's, for that, like the Easy at Home brand, they have different kinds. They have kinds that have like 50 kits or 50 of the ovulation strips, and then like 20 pregnancy tests. So they've got some that are different combinations of stuff, or they're just ovulation strips and whatnot. So I heard some people say they don't like them because they didn't think they were accurate. Personally, I thought they were pretty accurate for me, so I never had a problem with them. But you have those other options that are like the clear blue ovulation strips, where they work the same way, but those have like a little, they're digital, and they have that like smiling, like solid blinking, or solid smiling face if you're ovulating, or if you've ovulated, I think. And so those are great. I have a friend who used those and she liked those. Personally, I didn't want to go that way because, again, on Amazon, the clear blue like that, you get 40 tests, and it was $76.78. That was a huge price difference for me. I liked those little strips for pregnancy tests as well. That's what I would use every month because one of the kits that I had gotten had like 20 pregnancy tests in there. And so I checked again. And if you just were to do like the easy at home, you got 25 of them for $9.98 versus if you were to buy the first response and the clear blues and those fancy other ones that range from like only getting 3 tests, and they were $10 to $15 for those 3 tests. So again, just some really high level ballpark numbers for you, but that's just why I picked the ones that I did, especially knowing that I was going to be using so many of them. So if I had ever gotten a positive pregnancy test on those little strips, I would have most definitely run to the store and gotten either the first response. The pink ones I think typically read better than the blue ones, just as a tip, or a digital one. All of this leads me into testing. So when do you test and how often should you test? For me, my rule was I would not test and do a pregnancy test unless it was 9 days past my ovulation date, because then I should have known whether or not I was pregnant. It would have been pretty darn clear at that point, and I did not want to be squinting and like, oh, is that pink? Is that, is that another line? Is it not a line? I did not want to go down that rabbit hole. And so for me, my rule was do not test before 9 days. Basically because the more you see those negative pregnancy tests, and not trying to like wish the bad on anybody, but the more you see those, the more it just starts like disappointing you, and you start to lose your hope. And that was one thing I didn't want to do. I never wanted to lose the hope that we were pregnant. If you want to test at that 5 and 6 days past ovulation, by all means, go for it. But for me, I knew that I couldn't do that. Leads me to one of my last points, and that is to pray and or journal. So for me, this is when I made my prayer time with God a huge priority in the morning. And not only did I see my faith and the strength of my faith like grow exponentially whenever I did this, but it took so much stress off of me when I would sit there and I would just start brain dumping everything that was in my head to God and just giving him and telling him like all of my fears and my anxiety or my anxious thoughts and my concerns, will I ever get pregnant? Will we ever have kids? My hopes and my dreams for what our family could look like. And just, he already knows what you're thinking. So I was doing nothing but telling him already what he already knew. But it helped me so much to just get it off my chest, get it out of my head, and give it to him. And I think the biggest part was that it just helped me release the control that I wanted to have on this process so much that is completely out of your control. But it just helped me release it all and give it to him and completely lean into him and trust his timing. Because I tell you, God's timing is perfect. He is never late, he is never early, he is always right on time. And so for me, when they told us we had to wait an entire year to start trying, I thought the world was going to end, and I thought it was going to take forever to get here. But I tell you, we are pregnant right now, and it was a long road to get here, but the timing is perfect. And so that is the one thing that I learned. My last point, if you are going through a trying to conceive journey and it's not going the way you think it is, or you are hoping for something else, just know that you're not alone. There are so many people that are going through the same thing, and not everybody wants to talk about it, and that is perfectly fine. I started sharing our journey because I just felt like I needed to, and this was my way to share it with all of you. And again, it was something that I feel like it was placed on my heart by God to do, and so that is where my channel came from. I say it all the time, I am always here to pray for you guys and anything that you're going through, not just with trying to conceive or infertility, anything at all, whether it's job related or your marriage or your friends or whatever it is. Just know that you are not alone and that you are not going through this by yourself. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, click that little subscribe button. Again, like I just said, I am always praying for you guys, so if I can pray for you in any specific way, drop that down below. I would love to add you to my little list. That is it for today though. I will talk to you guys next Monday. Take care and God bless.